Hello everyone, welcome back to Code to CloudX. So today we are going to learn how to run PostgreSQL using Docker. But in this video, we will not only install PostgreSQL using Docker. We will also understand data persistence, volume mapping, PGAdmin configuration, database creation, and what actually happens behind the scene when a containers get deleted. And finally, we will see how Docker volume help us recover and reuse the same database data even after recreating the container. So let's get started. So firstly, you have to make sure that Docker desktop is installed on your local machine. If Docker Desktop is not installed, you can visit the official website docker.com, and here you will find the option download Docker Desktop. So Docker provides installer for different operating systems like Windows, Mac and Linux. You can choose your operating system and download Docker Desktop accordingly. So as you can see, I have already installed Docker Desktop on my Windows operating system and it is currently running. Now, before working with Docker, let's first verify whether Docker is running properly on our local machine or not. So for that, open cmd and run the command docker version. After running this command, you should be able to see client and server details. If both client and server information are visible, it means Docker desktop is running successfully on your local machine. So now let's move to the next step and pull the PostgreSQL image into our local system using Docker commands. So here we have the Docker command to create and run a PostgreSQL container. So in this command, we are using Docker run to create and start the container. Then we are using -p for port mapping between local machine and container. Then we are using name to provide the container name. Then we are using -e for environmental variables. So here we are using Postgres underscore user and Postgres underscore password using -e. So here we can pass the username and password. And also we are using database name which will create automatically when we will start the container. And then we are using -d. So -d to run the container in detached mode, meaning it will run it in background. And Postgres, this is the Docker image name. So this single command will create and start the Postgres SQL container, will create the database automatically, and will configure the username and password, and will also expose the Postgres SQL port so that applications or tools like PGAdmin can connect to it. Now let's run this command. So before running it, if we check Docker desktop, we can see that currently we don't have any PostgreSQL image and no PostgreSQL container is running. So now let's execute this command. Copy this command and paste it. So now we can see that Docker has pulled, but yeah, Docker has pulled, but firstly it's tried to pull from locally. If it's not find, then it try to pull from Docker Hub. So now we can see that Docker has pulled the PostgreSQL image and started. So firstly, if we will check the image, so image has pulled and container has started. So now we can connect this PostgreSQL database using tools like you can use PGAdmin, DBWeaver or SQL Electron. So if you want a lightweight tool, then you can use SQL Electron or DBWeaver. But for this demo, I am using PGAdmin because it is widely used for PostgreSQL database management. But here one important point to remember that if you delete this container, your data will be lost. So when you are not using PostgreSQL, you should only stop instead of deleting it. But one more point, somehow mistakenly if you delete the container, so how can we make sure that our database data still exists? So in for this purpose we use volumes. If that volume has already been created automatically for this PostgreSQL container with a long alphanumeric name. So what does it mean? Because the PostgreSQL Docker image internally declares a volume for storing database data. But the problem with anonymous volume is that their names are not meaningful and become difficult to manage later. This is why real world projects we generally create and pass our own named volume manually. So instead of relying on Docker generated anonymous volumes, we usually create our own named volume and map it explicitly with the Postgres data directory. And one more important thing to understand here, if we delete the container, if we will go into the container and if we will delete this container, so if you will see that volume will be anonymous volume will also get removed, right? So now delete this image as well. And now let's modify the Docker command. So you can see here we are adding -v for means -v for volume mapping. Then we are passing the volume name, and after that the PostgreSQL data directory. So we are passing the directory path inside the container where database file will be stored in this location. So this will help us persist our PostgreSQL data even if the container will delete it. One more important changes here I am doing. Previously we are using only Postgres and we are not passing any tag name or any version name. So if we do not specify any version, Docker will pull the latest PostgreSQL image by default. But in real world, but in real projects, but in real world projects, using a specific version is always recommended to avoid compatibility issue. So this is why we are using Postgres colon 16. It's a tag name or you can say it's a version name. So and if you open the Docker Hub, you can see hub.docker.com and Postgres and under the tag section. If you will see, we have multiple images, Postgres images. So you can pull any version. Now let's run this command. So I copy this command, copy. So now the command has been executed successfully and we can see that Docker has downloaded the newer version. So now let's verify everything in Docker desktop. So here if we go into the image section, we can see that PostgreSQL image has been pulled successfully and the tag name is 16. Next, if we check the container section, that we can see order service Postgres container is running successfully, right? Now if you will click onto the volume section and check, if you will click and you can see that order underscore pg underscore data, it's a volume name, and if you will click on this and click on container in use section, that we can see that this volume is attached to our PostgreSQL container. This means our PostgreSQL database files are now being stored inside this named Docker volume. Okay. So now let's configure the PostgreSQL database using PGAdmin. So you can simply search PGAdmin and here we have a download section, and here you will find the download option for different operating system like Windows, Mac operating system. Okay. So since I am using Windows, and here you can select any version. So as I have already downloaded and installed PGAdmin, so now let's directly configure our PostgreSQL container and access the database. So as I have already installed PGAdmin, so let's open PGAdmin. PGAdmin, click on that. So here you can see if PostgreSQL is not already registered in your PGAdmin, then you can register it manually. So let me show you quickly how to configure it. So click here, click on register and server, register server. And then, so here you can give the any name for the server. So for example, I am giving the same name what we are using for container. Okay. Then come into the connection section. Here we will pass localhost and 5432 is the default port, and here we will pass the password root. And now click on save. So PGAdmin will connect to your PostgreSQL Docker container successfully. So you can see here, and if so, you can see it's a database name. And if you want, you can also create your own database manually by right click and selecting the create database. So you can create the your own database manually as per your requirement. And similarly, under the schema section, you can create the table. Currently, we don't have any table. If you want, then you can create the table. So simply what you can do, you can right click and query tool. So let me quickly create one sample table. So now we can check table has created or not. So you can refresh and let's see under the schema and table. So now you can see. So if you want to query first 100 rows, so you can check. Currently we don't have any record. So currently no records are available because we have not inserted any data yet. But you can see the table structure and schema that we created successfully. So now comes the most important part. If we delete the PostgreSQL container, so your data will be still remain safe because it is stored inside the Docker volume. Okay. And next time, if you create a new PostgreSQL container using the same volume name, so Docker will automatically attach the existing volume and all your previous database data will be available again. That is the major advantage of using Docker volumes of database persistence. So this is how we can configure PostgreSQL using Docker, connect it with PG, admin, create database and tables, and persist data using Docker volumes. So thanks for the watching. Let's connect in next video.